Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the All Ball Special. With me, I have a very special guest 539 appearances, 137 goals, 46 assists. I have with me Ian Hume. Ian, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. It's 590 appearances actually, but it's no, it's great to be on and be able to chat about things I've done and things I'm looking forward to.
So, how's it been during the lockdown for you?
Not too bad. I guess it's a bit easier since I haven't been playing. I think if I was in a club and in an environment where I wasn't able to play games, it'd be a bit more frustrating. But being able to focus on what the next chapter is it's given me time. So obviously frustration, the same as everyone else in the world where football's been switched off up until they reopened. Was it in May or end of May? So it's been quiet. It's been one of those, like I said, with not playing, it's a lot easier not to lose concentration and to get more frustrated. Like if I was playing, I would have been a wreck, having to lock up in these bubbles and not be able to go and see people and go out and meet people and be around people other than the team would be extremely frustrating. But no, it is what it is. And like I said, off air, I'm unfortunately towards the end of my career, and it's been able to chill out a little bit more. And during lockdown or just after lockdown opened up again in the UK, myself, my wife, and my two kids moved over to Canada. So we're well and truly getting settled over here, and girls are in school and everything. So it's on with life the way it is now.
Well, that's nice, and hopefully, everyone's safe there. So, speaking of a prestigious career, I mean, tell us how you started football. What was your first
Um,
of the ball?
just I started being my family's Scottish, so it's kind of a culture. So it was my dad always wanted me and my brother to play soccer and or football, and he tried to get us in. My brother took to it a little bit earlier than me. He's 3 years older, but when he put me in, I didn't like it. I was only 3 years old, so it was kind of I wanted to play baseball because that was the big thing at the time in Canada. And my dad said, "Not a chance." Now he goes, you can wait this season. You can play soccer next year. So did that, went back in, and it's been that way ever since. Just played since 4 years old, and I'm 37 now. So I've had a good run of it. So just enjoyed it. It's something you fall in love with. It's not just a game you go and play. It's something you fall in love with, and I did that at a very young age. And I think I've been very fortunate to have as long as I have in the game. But like I said, all good things come to an end, and now I'm just trying to figure out that other side of it. And um, moving over to the UK when I was 15 was a tough one because I moved without any family. So it was just kind of a here you go and try it. And very fortunate, just everything took off right away. And within the first year, I made my senior debut when I was 16, and just like you said before, I've had nearly 600 appearances since then, and been around the world, played for my country, which is the biggest honor in the world. Played in stadiums and against people that I'd never dreamed I would have done, and played in Spain, played in India, and played all over the world for Canada. So it was kind of a dream scenario for my career, and something I look back on with great pride.
And another one of those moments where you scored your first professional goal in 2002. What was that feeling like?
Oh, it was incredible. I should have scored way before that. Like I had so many chances before that. But it was a strange scenario. When I first came in, I only played 3 games that first season, and that was only as a sub. And it was incredible just to be involved. And then the next year, I played something like 15 games towards the end of the season, and still no goals. I had chances. I had hit posts, keepers pulled off saves, and all that. But the year after that, I played a lot more. I played probably 25, 30 games that year, and I remember the goal clear as day. It was a front post header and against Peterborough, and it was incredible just to finally break that duck and get that little bit of weight off my shoulders and knowing that that's something that I was born to do, was to play and score goals and try and be a pest to people. And I'd done the being a pest bit for 40 odd games, but scoring the goal to finally get that first one was incredible.
Amazing. And then you moved on and signed for Leicester in 2005. You know, you were the most expensive signing that season. So what was that change like?
It was huge. It was a strange scenario because my wife and I, we were actually in the middle of planning our wedding for the following summer, and it just came out of nowhere. There was other teams. Preston North End were after me for the whole transfer window, and like I'd had a really, really good season the season before, and we just missed out on promotion by the playoff semi-finals, and I wasn't in a hurry to move anywhere because I was just enjoying playing. And with Preston being in for me, the club at the time, Tranmere, were playing hardball with them and asking for more money all the time, and it essentially died. And then I think it was like 2 days before the window was closing, Leicester City called my agent and just said, "Listen, we're interested, blah blah blah, and we'll see what goes on. We need to move players out." And they ended up selling one of their strikers to, I think it was to Wigan, David Connolly, a big small striker. So they kind of said to me that it was a replacement for him. And it was deadline day, right on the, I think it was, I trained that morning with Tranmere. And then right after training, I get a phone call saying, "Oh, we've got to go." So my agent lived in London at the time, so he was driving up to Leicester. I was living in Tranmere. So I had to drive down and meet him there. And it was just surreal, and it was kind of rushed. And like I said, with planning the wedding and everything, it was kind of wasn't something we'd thought about moving, but it was as soon as I drove into Leicester's training ground and seen the makeup of the club and the way that it was all set up compared to what Tranmere was, it was night and day. It was so far different. And then pulling into the car park, and there's like Mercedes-Benz everywhere and Bentleys and Range Rovers, and I'm like, okay. Well, I drove in my Vauxhall Astra, an older car, and it was just perfect. And they rushed me through a medical. We agreed terms on a contract, and within about 2 hours, I'd signed a contract, and we were done. And it was a 3-year contract, and I got the chance to go and play for them in front of 30,000 every week in an amazing stadium. For me, was probably my favorite place in England to play. I had 3 years there and I enjoyed every minute of it. And yeah, it was just one of those moments where you weren't planning anything, and all of a sudden you flip everything upside down and you're moving house. And I was living in a hotel for 3 months or 2.5 months, and driving up to Tranmere because my wife and kids were still, or my wife and we only had one daughter at the time. They were still up in Tranmere, so I was up and down twice a week, and it was just a quick fire moment, and it was, to be honest, it was a great time.
Speaking of great times, I mean, with Leicester, you won goal of the season in 2008 for your strike against Watford. So describe that goal for us.
It was frustrating at the time because we in the summer, like that was going into my last season. I had 2 really good seasons, and I played every game up front. And then going into the last season, we changed coach, and he brought in like 3 strikers, and he kept myself and my strike partner Matty Fryatt. And I'm a bit more versatile. I can play left wing, right wing. I did it quite a lot when I was younger. So I played right wing, and I wasn't happy because I'd played so many games up front for them, and I'd lead and score for the first 2 years I was there. And then he comes in and he plays me right wing. And if I wasn't playing right wing, I wouldn't have scored that goal. So it was kind of a bittersweet because I didn't want to be playing there, although I was happy to be playing in the team. And then it was just one of those. It dropped to me 25 yards out, and I just swung, went in the top corner and off the crossbar. And it was funny enough, I probably had a couple better goals for Leicester, but that was one that got voted for goal of the season. And it was a great goal because it was at home. We had 30,000 people there, and it was one of our first games of the season. So it was against a team that just came down from the Premier League. So it was a big win for us, and it was great to get that goal.
Amazing. You then joined Barnsley on 25th June 2008, where you suffered a very serious head injury. So talk us through that period. What was the injury like, and how did you recover?
Well, first off, I wasn't. We got relegated with Leicester, which was a hard one to take, and we'd uh, we'd gone on holiday. Me and my wife and my first daughter, we'd gone on holiday, and we were actually in Orlando at Disney World. So we were walking around Disney World, and my phone kept ringing, and it was my agent, and we kind of didn't want to leave Leicester, but they'd accepted fees, and it was kind of we asked for a contract that we didn't expect them to say yes to, and lo and behold, they came in with what we asked for, and we're like, okay, fine, well, like it's Barnsley was a decent club. It wasn't anything against them. It was just the fact I wasn't in a hurry to leave Leicester. So we moved there, and everything got sorted, and we went and bought a house and signed a 3-year contract, and it was just one of those things. And then I'd scored on my debut against QPR away, and things were going well. And then I got sent off in my home debut, which was frustrating. Um, but it was a couple months in, and lo and behold, what happened. I got elbowed and fractured my skull, and nobody had expected something like that to happen. The amount of times you see strikers and defenders and whoever challenge for balls, and you never see anyone get injured like that. So it was a strange one. It was funny enough. It just happened. The exact same thing just happened to Raul Jimenez, Wolves versus Arsenal, and hopefully he gets a speedy recovery and he's in the right hands. The protocols have changed so much in the last 12 years since it happened to me. So he's in the right hands. They've got the right setups to get him back probably sooner than what I did. But it was just at the time, there was no real concussion protocol. There was no real protocol for head injuries. It was just look at it, see if it's swollen, if it's broken, if it's this, if there's blood, if it's a cut, then they look at it and sort it that way. But at the time, it was nothing where they went deep into. So I didn't get sent to the hospital. Like with the head injury, I didn't get sent to the hospital. So I went home, and I still, like everyone else in my family and everything, blame the doctor. It was poor management from him. He should have sent me straight to the hospital. And funny enough, like the week after it happened to me, they changed all the protocol, and head injuries, you had to go to the hospital to get checked up right away. Like that's something that changed right after mine. But yeah, it was one of those. We didn't know how to take it. We didn't know what was going on. Went to the hospital, got discharged. They thought I just had concussion. So they sent me home. As we were walking out, my wife and I and my father-in-law, we were walking out from the hospital, and I started throwing up. So they rushed me back in for a CT scan, and said, yeah, the whole left side of my brain was covered in blood. And they were obviously panicking. My wife was panicking a bit. My father-in-law was there. He was upset. And it was just one of those things. We didn't know what was going on because I wasn't swollen. It wasn't depressed. It wasn't anything like that. So, went in, and Salford Royal, which at the time was Hope Hospital, pretty much saved my life, which was amazing, obviously. And I was in hospital for 8 days or 7 days, and I had to do a couple tests and whatever, and memory tests and all that, and lost my license for 6 months, and had to get a set of glasses because my left eye was a little bit blurry for 6 months. I hardly wore them, like a kind of stubborn like that. But now it was circumstances that we weren't expecting and we'd never planned for. But the people I had around me, at the time, my agent, the coaches, my wife, my wife's family, my family, some of my family flew over from Canada to come and see me, and just all the fans, and everything was amazing. The support I had, and the people around me was incredible, and it helped get me back. And I was back training, running maybe a month after I had it, just over a month after I had it. So just after Christmas, physio came over from Barnsley, and we were jogging around my village. Then once the new year came, I think it was towards the end of January, early February, I was going over to the club 3 days a week. And then I was back in full training. I think by round about the end of March, middle of April, I was in full training with the guys and just did everything. I went through pre-season, did everything. Finally got the clearance from insurance, from specialists and from the insurance companies. And that was it. It was less than 8 months. I think it was 5.5 months I was back full train, and then 8 months I played my first game, which was incredible. And when I finally got back on the scoring trail, I scored my first goal against West Brom, penalty, and I've still got the video. It's one of those things. The emotion just came bawling out of me. And I was tears and picked the ball up and threw it about 100 feet in the air. Like I didn't know I had that strength in me, but yeah, just relief and just that feeling to be back on the field regularly. And it was listen, circumstances I just approached it the same way as somebody would if they touch wood broke their leg or did their ACL or some major injuries. It's something that was, because I'd never been injured properly before that. I'd had hamstring pulls and thigh pulls and all that, but I'd never been properly injured. So it was tough. It was the longest time at the time that I'd been injured. So just having the right people around me helped me get back a lot quicker.
And Ian, how difficult was it, mentally to step onto that field and after such a serious injury, just leave that aside and, play like you do?
It didn't matter. I'll be honest. It's people. When I speak about it, when I spoke about it afterwards, people were asking the same thing, and I still get questioned up to this day. Like, how's your head? Like, it's 12 years ago. Like, it's one of those things. I never had a doubt in my mind that I'd be back playing. I just have nothing. I had nothing else. I just have no education. I left school at a very young age from Canada. I'm a footballer. All I've ever done is football. Trained, played, learned a game, watch videos, watch games. It's all I've ever done. So there was never a doubt in my mind. The specialist wanted me to try and wear one of those helmets that Petr Cech wears. It was never going to happen. I didn't want to change who I was and how I played the game. Although I know I get questioned, well, what if it happened again? And what if you get smacked in the head again? And which has happened hundreds of times since I actually had the operation. But it just wasn't me. And anyone who knows, like, as much as my wife hates it, I'm stubborn. I like the way I play the game, and I want to play it the same way every time I touch the field. And if I don't think I can do that, then there's no point doing it, because half of me is not worth half of me. Like, it's kind of one of those things in my head. And my first touch of the ball in a game was, I came on in a preseason game against Gainsborough Trinity, and the first touch of the ball in 8 months was a header. So like that, the centre back I was playing against, I've known him for years, and I'd played against him through the ranks and everything. And he turns around at me and goes, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Why are you heading the ball?" I said, "Well, it's what I do. Like, it's the ball's there to be headed. I try to head it." But yeah, it's as soon as I was back in full training, I knew I was okay. I had a couple setbacks here and there with nerve problems, but other than that, it was never in question for me to get back playing.
Amazing. You then went on to make your debut for Canada in a friendly versus Libya in 2013. So talk us through that.
2003, I made my debut. It was a long time ago. It was way before all of that happened. That was incredible. It was I'd been involved with the under-20 teams and under-17 teams and under-15 and all that with Canada, and to go out to Libya for my first real chance. Funny enough, I played right wing as well. But it was just that the moment was just weird. We were there in the middle of Ramadan, and right at the end of Ramadan, they'd done all their sacrifices and all that, and that was weird for us because it's something we'd not witnessed. And then we play the game, and there's probably 40,000 people there. And one of the players in the field, I don't know if it was his son or his nephew, but it was Colonel Gaddafi's family member. So he got subbed off. Like, I actually played a decent game, but he got subbed off about 65 minutes or something like that. He went round and shook every single person on the field's hand, like both goalkeepers, referees, linesmen, players from our team, players from his team. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was so weird. It was just a weird game. Like, we killed them. We beat, I think it was 4-1 at finish, but it could have been more. And it was just weird. And then learning about Gaddafi, and they brought us around his old palace that got bombed by Americans, and they still have one of the bombs there that didn't explode. So they diffused it and left it there. It's kind of at the time, it was kind of like a shrine. So tourists would always come around and see it. And it was, it was definitely an eye opener to go out there. And it had been the first time I'd obviously been to Libya. I didn't think I'd ever be there, but to go to Tripoli and you're walking around and, just a surreal moment. And to play for my country, I always took massive pride in that. And to get my senior debut was incredible.
Then came the ISL in 2014 with Kerala. So how did that come along? How did you settle with life in India?
Well, it came out of nowhere because when it got to that time, it was the first time in all since 1999, since I'd been in the UK, that I was out of contract. I'd always had 2, 3, 4-year contracts. So I kept going. I kept going to a different club. I'd sign a renewed contract. I'd go to a different club. So I'd never been out of contract. And I did an interview with a friend of mine because Leicester had just been promoted to the Premier League. And he was doing a freelance job for a Canadian company. So he thought the only way he knew best was I knew him off doing a couple of interviews. So he got in contact with me and asked me to do an interview because the Canadian who's played for Leicester's just been promoted. It just made sense. So we did the whole interview and everything, and probably 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, we were talking. And at the end of it, he just asked me what was going on. And I told him the situation. I had no club. First time I'm out of contract. And he asked if I'd knew or heard anything about the Indian Super League. And obviously I hadn't. And not being ignorant or anything, I hadn't heard anything about Indian football. So I didn't know about the Kolkata Derby. I didn't know anything about the I-League, the national team, nothing. So he passed me a guy's name and number who was with IMG, who were at the start of the Super League, were helping run the league. So I got in contact with him, spoke to my wife about it, got in contact with him. And being an international player, he looked up my CV and he's like, oh yeah, text me back for sure. And we'll take you. We'd love to have you there. We haven't got a Canadian player. We haven't got anything like that. So he goes, this is the situation. This is how it's run. We do a draft. The Indian players are doing a draft first, so they'll be drafted to their clubs. Here's the list of the clubs. Didn't have a clue where anyone was, apart from Mumbai. That's the only one that I really knew about. And then he's like, well, here's the list of foreign players who are entered into the draft. It's happening on this day. I think it was like September 3rd or something. He's like, so you'll know by the end of September 3rd, Indian time, when and where you're going to be playing. So I woke up the next day and I'd been drafted to Kerala Blasters, and I looked through the team list and there's David James, there's Michael Chopra, there's Jamie McAllister, Andy Barisic, who I didn't know at the time, but he was an English-speaking player because I didn't know how much English people in India spoke. Like I genuinely didn't know much about India. So yeah, it was we flew in. Everyone had to go and get their visas sorted. We flew into Kochi and we straight up to Thrissur. We did our preseason in Thrissur, and it was it was a great group of guys. Like, we were very fortunate at the time. Indian players and foreign players. There wasn't many egos. Am I getting to meet? We had a couple of Brazilian boys there. Getting to meet Cedric Hansbart and Rafa Romy, 2 French boys, great guys. And every single player in the team was just a good person. And I think that's why we had so much success. Was because we were willing to fight for each other and we were willing to be honest with each other. And that's, coming into a place like Kochi and you're playing in front of 60,000 people. Like the first ISL was insane. Like the fan base was just over the top. Like it was more than anything. Like even Calcutta at the time, they were getting good fans, and fair play, they won the first ISL against us, but there was no atmosphere the same as what Kochi was that first ISL. And to be a part of it and with that group of guys was just a great way to start that adventure, because that was the main reason I came out to India. Was I was a little bit fed up with politics in the UK, as far as like 30 years old and 400, 500 plus games and couldn't get a club. Like that was ticked me off a bit. Like without swearing, it's the only way I can say it, is it ticked me off quite a bit. And getting the opportunity to go have an adventure was a good one. And it was only 3 months, so I was back at home for Christmas. So it wasn't a big one. And just that first season was just a great one.
You then moved to ADK, change in culture. You even got a title with them. So what was your experience with ADK?
It was great. To be honest, that's probably the best football I've played in the last 10 years. I played well in the first ISL. Just didn't score as many goals as I probably should have. But then the next 2 seasons, even then, I probably didn't score as many goals as I should have. But I played probably the best, most enjoyable football I had, and just kept going. Like it was one of those. I wasn't planning on leaving Kerala. I'd agreed terms verbally with the club to stay for the second ISL, and then the new coach came in and said he wanted to change it up. So I went from winning the Player of the Year for the league to not being needed or wanted. So it was kind of frustrating. But as soon as they announced that they weren't signing me, ATK were on the phone within like half an hour. Like it was crazy. I went out there again. It wasn't financially based. It was just a matter of the champions of the league with the team that they had. They told me that they were retaining majority of the team. Told me the guys they were retaining with Borja, Josemi, bringing in Thierry and Javilara and Helder Postiga. And it was just a perfect fit. And I knew the way they played. The coach had them playing decent football, and I knew I could add to that. And that especially the second season, even though we didn't win the league, that second season was so enjoyable. The way we played football, the way we beat teams up. Like we were so physical, but we were so technically good, I thought. And I think we should have won the league that year. But we had one bad game in the semi-finals against Chennai, and it killed us off. And fair play to Chennai for going on to win it. But yeah, that third season, winning the trophy finally was massive. We were very, very well organized that year. We had some good players, obviously, but I think we were a lot more organized, and we were a lot more disciplined with how we played. And fair play to the coach Molina. It was we were a good side, and we deserved to win it that year. And it was tough to win it in Kochi against Kerala, but again, it was one of those things. Getting that trophy and getting our hands on the trophy. I know some of the ATK boys, it was the second time, but for me it was the first, and it was a massive one for me, and I enjoyed it.
You then had some time off the ISL in Spain, before returning for Kerala and Pune. So how is it coming back to, Kerala and then moving to Pune after that?
Well, both Spain signings came from ATK. Well, the first one especially came from ATK because they wanted to retain me for the year after the year we won the trophy. So they arranged for me to play for the next 6 months. So they got me in touch with some clubs. And it was good. It was a great level. Kind of frustrating circumstances. Going in, and a coach didn't want any foreign players, and it was kind of like, well, why sign me? So they'd signed me for the club, and then they'd already had 2 other foreign players in, one from Zenit, St. Petersburg, and one from a team in Portugal. And they signed us, and then they changed coach, and the new coach came in, and he didn't want foreign players. So like 2 months we were doing nothing. So we were training every day, and then every weekend we were off. It was like, it was like a 5 day a week job, and it was frustrating, and but it was a great experience just being over there and learning a new culture around the game, and going back to ATK, and I'd learned a little bit of Spanish so I could speak or understand a bit of the Spanish from the coaches. And when I went back to ATK, and after winning the trophy, I signed in Spain again, and I really enjoyed it that time. I played regularly, got injured for a bit, but the team was fighting relegation when I signed. So they signed in January, they signed 13 players because they were like, I think they were second bottom with like 5 points and coming up to Christmas. So they changed the team completely, brought in 13 players. They brought in Josu, they brought in myself, Tony Doblas, and they brought in a couple other players from around the leagues. And we just went on a roll. It was just one of those things. Like, the facilities weren't great. It was a smaller team. But the new owner had come in and he changed everything up, and it was just a great experience. Like, we went on a massive roll. I think the second half of the season, we were the second or third best team in the league. So we ended up like 7 points above relegation by the end of the season. And the only goal I scored out there was the goal that won the game that kept us up. So it was the one that made it concrete that we were staying up, which was like 3 games to go in the season. So yeah, the fans took to me pretty quickly there. And when I did play, I think I had 2 or 3 assists, and I scored that one goal, and just enjoyed it. It was just a really enjoyable 5 months. And that led me into coming back to the ISL again and ATK after winning the trophy and being top scorer for 2 years. They said they were splitting from Atletico Madrid, so they weren't keeping the majority of the team. I think they only ended up keeping 1 player. Got rid of the rest of us, which was crazy and hard to accept. But again, it's football. We have to get used to it, and we have to pretty much do as we're told. So yeah, back came Kerala. I'd been in contact with Kerala. I'd been in contact with Goa, Jamshedpur, and they were all interested. And they'd spoke, and Pune. And I'd sat down with all of them, and my agent had spoken to all of them. And Kerala came in with the first offer, and it was kind of like, okay, well, I'll come back. And then they changed things up. They changed the contract offer, and they changed this, and they changed that. So they went really quiet for about a month and a half, 2 months. And then I'm having to stall on Goa, Pune, Jamshedpur, because Steve Koppel had just gone from Kerala to Jamshedpur. So we'd spoke, my agent had spoken to them, and we just decided, you know what, we're going to come over for the draft. So we flew over for the draft. We were there, I think we were there 36 hours in Mumbai. We were at St. Regis. We went there for the draft, and we sat down and spoke to people face to face. And I think Kerala kind of seen that I was talking to other people, and there was other people interested, and they banged out a deal for me. And it wasn't the same thing they'd offered. And it probably wasn't as much as what a couple other teams offered, but it was the chance to go back. So it was, I think I let my heart lead my head for once, and I wanted to go back and play there again, and possibly should have, maybe not, with the way things worked out, or the way things went after, with Muhlenstein coming in, and just the circumstances. And it was great to go back, though. I enjoyed it, but again, like I said, my heart led my head that time.
You have 3 hat tricks in the ISL, the only player to do so. Must be a great feeling.
Yeah, for now. Thankfully, Coro left, so I think he would have caught me anytime, pretty soon. Sunil Chetty will catch me, no problem. I was once the leading scorer of the league as well, and I keep saying this. It's not about records. For me, it's about just going out and enjoying it. To have records is great for a time being, but records are there to be broken. And with Korominas being there, the guy just scores goals for fun. Like, he's crazy how he scores goals. Sunil Chetri's the exact same. Ogbeche, same thing. The guy just bangs goals, and he's got two hat tricks now. So there's no doubt he'll pass that at some point. But again, you have Krishna, you have, like I said, Sunil's there. You have these guys, Aaron Dan, now playing with Hyderabad, scores goals for fun. This new boy Angulo that I've seen for Goa, the guy scores goals for fun. So it's one of those things. It's nice. It's nice to have that. That's the only one. I think that's the only record I've still got. Possibly one I can throw in there is that I'm the only one who scored a hat trick with a head strapping on. I did it twice. No, it's great to have scored hat tricks. They're my only 3 hat tricks in my career. So to score them out there, it's great to have the recognition from the players and to be in teams like that who help me create goals like that. It's great because that's what being a striker is. You get the adulation for all the hard work the team does, and you get all the plaudits, but it wasn't anything that could have happened without the guys that were around me.
Ian, you've played with players around the world, and you've played with the young Indian players. You've been a part of the Indian system for a while. So, what is your opinion, on the progression of Indian football and the young Indian footballers?
I think I've said this so many times. I think since ISL 1 to now, okay, obviously this year's a bit of a hard one to judge because you're playing in the bubble in Goa. But I think other than that, I think the infrastructure of all the clubs has changed so much. Like none of the teams the first season had youth teams. None of them had reserve teams. None of them had grassroots programs. It was just they threw teams together and they put them into a tournament. Now that it's become a league program, it's so much more investment, so much, not just investment of money, but time. Getting in coaches who coach the grassroots and getting in managers who manage the grassroots alone. And it's so far beyond what it was. When the ISL started, it was all, not every player, but majority of them were older players. They were maybe late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, some of them. Now the majority of players that are coming through, like you look at all the ISL teams and the average ages, they're probably mid-20s now, the average age. And when you've got players coming through, like you look around the leagues and you look at the players who are breaking in, it's time for somebody to step up and be a hero. Like you've got Sandesh, who's 26 now, 27. And he's an old guy. Like that's crazy. Like he's one of the older players. But you have Sunil. Sunil's not going to live forever. Well, he probably will. Whether he'll play forever, I don't know. But there's nobody else to score goals. JJ's had a rough 18 months, 2 years with injuries and not playing as much as possible. And it's like they need somebody new. You've got Tapa, you've got Sahal coming through. These guys are, for me, technically, probably the most gifted players in India right now. Then you have Ashik, you have Brandon broke back into the national team, and you've got a lot of young players who played in the Under-17 World Cup and that they're breaking into the squads now. And it's great because now these guys are building careers for themselves for the next 10 years. And it's an exciting time for them because with the pandemic, I know it's a bad way to take it, but with the pandemic, they've been able to focus only on club football because there's not been any international football. So it's not like having to worry about going away to a camp for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then coming back and playing games and then going away for. Now it's only about themselves and their club, and they can focus on making themselves better and working hard. And I think the better players will show up now after the pandemic, because you got a lot of players, and I've watched, and I'm not going to name names, but I've watched a lot of the videos, and you see the pictures from clubs from pre-seasons, and there's guys who've gone away and not worked. They've had contracts sitting in front of them, and they know the contract's there, and they've gone away and not worked. They've come in unfit. And that's why they're not involved with the teams when they should be. They should be playing regularly. But they're sitting in the stands or sitting on the bench. And you're seeing the better players are stepping up now. And you can see it visually watching the games. You can see who's gone away. And in the 2 months, 3 months lockdown, they worked. They kept themselves fit. They got themselves fitter. And those people will stand up. And I think you'll see a lot of new faces in the national team this year because they've shown how much they want it. And it's not a knock on guys who've gone away and not done the work, because God knows everybody around the world, there's quite a few of them who haven't done that, myself included. Like, I'm not going to lie. But it's been a good eye-opener, I think, for coaches, for Stimac. I think it'll be massive for him to watch this. He doesn't have to travel anywhere if he's in country. He just has to stay in one place. He can go to every game if he wants. He gets to see every single player who's going to be in contention. And then obviously on top of that, the ISL brings in the two Calcutta clubs. So you got East Bengal, Bagan. I think it's exciting for the league, for the country, because now you're going to have all the big fan bases in Indian football all in one league. So you got the two big guns from Calcutta, you got Kerala, you got Goa. Mumbai's just been bought by Citigroup, so they're going to have a bigger fan base. They've got obviously more money, as we've seen with who they've brought in. It is exciting times, and I think the young players now have to grasp that, and they have to take this opportunity to set up that career.
And who are you backing to lift the title this season?
Cool. It's hard to look past Mumbai because the money they've spent. They've brought in Adam Lafondra, they've brought in Ogbeche, and when you've got a guy like Ogbeche sitting on the bench, they've brought in Bumu, Jahu, Fal, Mandar. They've brought in a proper team. But I'm gonna have to say, having played for them, you can't look past the defending champions, because they've kept the majority of their team. They've added Thierry, they've added Sandesh. They've kept the strike force with Williams and Krishna. So it's hard to look past. I say this, it's hard to look past Mumbai, but again, the defending champions have to be the favourites going into the season, because they've literally just lifted the trophy 7 months ago. So it is what it is. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Goa, you never know, because they've lost majority of their team, but they'll still have the same ethos of where they play. Kerala, I'm hoping, come in with the new coaches come in from Mohan Bagan, who's breed success. He's won the I-League easily last year. So I'm imagining he'll come in and want to have success, but it's going to be tough with the players they've brought in, the ones that know the league, ones that don't know the league, and whether they settle. Jamshedpur signing Valskis, it's a big one for them. Taking Owen Coyle made the finals when Chennai shouldn't have made the finals. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. But I think your two firm favourites going in have to be ATK for me as the main favourite, and then Mumbai with the money they've spent and the players they brought in.
So we'll wait and watch, who lifts the title. But Ian, away from football now in India, I mean, you've played for 3 different clubs. So I'm sure you must have, tried different cuisines. You must have seen different places. So what do you think is your favorite cuisine or your favorite place in India?
Cuisine, I can't say anything. I'm not very adventurous with my cuisines, and if I did eat them, I couldn't tell you the names of them. There was a spicy beef that I had in Kerala that the chef always used to make. I can't even remember the name of it. So I used to have that with the Kerala rice, which I loved. It was hot as hell. But again, I don't remember the names of them. As far as places I've visited, it's one of those. It's when my family came over, we did the backwater tours in Kerala. We went to the elephant sanctuary in Kerala, where you go up and we actually got to wash in it. Like, elephants are my favorite animal. My kids love them. My wife loves them. We got to sit there and we got to wash a massive bull elephant, which was incredible. So that they're the great ones for me. On a personal level, I love playing golf. So I've obviously played golf in Calcutta at the old Calcutta course, which is, I think, the second oldest course in the world. So I did that with Stephen Pearson. I played in Kochi, which it was under repair at the time. So I played that the first ISL. But when I was in Pune have this one called Oxford Golf Course, and it's incredible. Me and Matt Mills played it a couple times, and a couple of guys from the ISL came down to play with us, Russell Osman and John Helm, who do the production and the commentary and that. They came down to play with us, and that was incredible. On a different level from going to travel around and seeing things. On a leisure level, that was incredible.
And any new skills you picked up in the lockdown over these new months?
No, not at all. No, I've just been concentrating on coaching and things, different ways of running sessions and different sessions to run, different ways to approach them. Because obviously I know it's the next chapter, and I'm starting up a little business with my brother where we're doing fitness and football, and we're doing football training along with sport-specific training for fitness. So we're in the middle of doing that, and I think that's something that we've concentrated quite a lot on over the last couple of months. And no new skills, but just trying to change the skills that I've known for 30 odd years, changing them into things on the other side of the white line so I can learn my coaching skills. And because as much as I've played and as much experience as I've got as a player, I'm not a coach. So I need to learn that, and that's something I'm working on.
Well, Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure our viewers will, love what they hear because you have so much to share. And it's an honor, and on behalf of the entire All Balls family, I want to thank you for joining us and for sharing your experiences.
Thanks very much, Raul.